How's it going, guys? I hope you're doing well, and also I hope that your 2025 is off to a good start. I know a lot of you have been asking about equipment on my Instagram and TikTok videos, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to make a video about my photography studio and what bits and pieces I use, whether it's cameras, lighting, tools, and accessories. And then hopefully that might inspire you in 2025 to potentially buy a few bits for yourself as well. There's a lot to talk about, so let's jump straight into it. Starting off with cameras, for photography, I use the S5, and for videography, I use the S5 IIX. I've also recently bought my dream camera, which is the Kronos 2.1 HD, and this is for shooting in slow motion at speeds of up to 1,000 frames per second. So why did I choose to stick with Panasonic for my camera? Well, it's a personal choice. Obviously, everybody has their own opinion. Some want to go with Sony, Nikon, Canon, but I started off with the G7, so I thought it was only natural to progress into other camera models and see what the quality's like, really. And I've always been impressed with the quality of Panasonic. The images are outstanding. When you get the right shot, it looks beautiful. It's everything that I need, and the camera is robust. The quick action buttons just really help me with changing my settings. So I've always been impressed with Panasonic for those reasons. Obviously, I know a lot of people got really funny about the autofocus, but when you're doing product photography work, you don't need autofocus. You're going to be shooting manual anyway, and you might be photo stacking. So I think you just have to consider those things depending on what you're trying to do. Naturally, I then upgraded to the S5 IIX for videography work, and that does have very good autofocus. I would say it's near perfect. It definitely needs some refinement, but it's really, really good. One thing that I particularly like as well is the 6K open gate, which has allowed me to also think about crops for landscape or portrait because of the formatting is slightly different. So it gives that flexibility with client work, and also shooting in 6K is amazing and allows you to crop or zoom in however you like to. Lastly, let's talk about the Kronos 2.1 HD. Now, I'm telling you, I debated about this the entire year. I had no idea whether this was the right choice or the wrong choice, and for me, I didn't regret it whatsoever. If you're looking to get into slow motion, it is expensive. This camera retails for about $7,500 just for the body. This is no lenses, and you'll need manual lenses as well with that. You can't use typically things that you have. I, for instance, have a set of Canon lenses using the EF mount. It works for me just to do some shots. I still need more equipment to make it work, but it is amazing. I just have this obsession with watching slow motion videos, how the movement is, the beauty of the shots, and I really do love capturing those sort of pieces for product videos. I think it just takes it to that next level. So if you are looking into that, I'll be happy to make another video about the Kronos if you want to know some more things in detail. So comment down below and let me know if you want to know that information. Since I've covered cameras, let's naturally progress into lenses and talk about which ones are key for me. There are three main lenses that I really want to talk about, and this is just what works for me, and it can be completely subjective depending on what you want to do. But for me, it's the 50mm, the 100mm macro, and a 20 to 60mm lens. And the reason is because of this is the 50mm provides just human eye quality. It's natural to what most people see, and I think that it frames the subject really well. Obviously, again, it's subjective. It depends on what you want to do, but I feel that that captures the product in the best way possible most times. Then the 100mm macro is that super sharp detail that you're looking for, whether it may be textures or bubbles, slow motion liquid shots, whatever you want to do. But it's superb for those refined details and really selling the product in a different way. And then the 20 to 60mm is sort of my filler lens. It's the safety I have when I'm trying to do something and I can't get quite the right angle or enough space. I'm working in a bedroom that's converted to a studio, so if I have to go further back and it doesn't work, this is where this lens comes in to shoot maybe a bit wider. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to using these for your current work. And if you haven't, I would just always recommend having a 50mm and 100mm macro just to give yourself some versatility when you're trying to capture product shots or videos. So back in September, I actually got the opportunity to work with Tilta, and they kindly provided me with their new tripod, which was the CT12. And honestly, this thing is a beast. I cannot believe how good it is at stabilization, functionality, control. It's just so smooth, and I wouldn't change it at the moment for anything. The only thing I would say is I'm surprised how pricey tripods can be, but because it's a carbon fiber build, it's retailed at $1,000. So it's, you know, on the higher side, but if you're using heavy duty equipment, maybe you've got a much bigger camera like a Red or an RE, then you may want to consider using this sort of tripod for that work. I have actually found that using the pan and tilt control benefits me a lot, and in my videography work I've managed to use it more and more in different ideas. But the main thing that really stood out to me was the weight capacity, and I'm managing to hold a much heavier payload now with adding sliders, pan and tilt controls on top, with my camera, with lenses. So having that additional payload has really benefited those dynamic shots that I'm trying to capture. One other bit of equipment that I've been using for my product photography work is the 2-in-1 boom arm pole by Pixapro. Now this bit of equipment is very useful to me because it allows me to set up shots in a simple way where I just take out the extra boom arm pole hidden inside the lighting stand, and then I'm good to go with my top-down shots. Because this stand has so much versatility, I find it's very good for photography or videography, and also sometimes I even use it as a backdrop stand. So if you're looking for something affordable, this will definitely help you get started. Now let's move on to lighting, and I'll start off first with what I use for photography. So obviously with this I focus on flashes. I don't use any studio lights for my photography. Now I know a lot of you may use a mixture of both, but I just find it a lot easier to capture my images with flash equipment. So for that, I actually have the QT403 as my main two flashes, and then I also use an additional flash, which is the AD300 Pro. Now the QT403 is extremely good with its flash duration, and that was the main reason why I got it in the first place. And you'll see in my work that I actually use it with splash photography, water drops. It's really good at keeping those things sharp and crisp. Whereas my AD300 Pro is really designed for just that sort of filler light where I need it for maybe a backdrop light or a spotlight on something. It's still very powerful, but it's not as good as the QT403. So it purely depends on what you're trying to do, but that is my 3 light setup that I typically use. For video lights, I've used a huge variety over the last year, and I've been thankful to work with Zion on a lot of video content, and they've been able to provide me with a different range of their lights, which I honestly love using. And they're not sponsoring this video at all. I can genuinely say that it's been very beneficial to my video work. The main lights I use from them are the G200 and the G300, and they're the ones that I use on my product work all the time. But most recently, I've also been given the B500, which is a 500-watt light. It's very bright and powerful, but this has really helped me in my slow motion work, because when you're shooting in slow motion, you need tons of light hitting the sensor in order to capture 1,000 frames per second. The other light that I've been sent from Zion is the C100, and this is a new light bar that they've recently brought out, and it's also 100 watts, which is very powerful for any sort of light tube. It's really beneficial to me because it's added those rim lights that I've been looking for, and I also use it on my diffusion panels to create lovely feathered looks across the products. In the final part of this video, I want to show you what I use to capture my dynamic shots. There's 2 bits of equipment that I use quite often now, and there's definitely a lot of motion that I can capture through this. The first one is the Zeppon Micro 3 slider. This is with the tilt and pan mechanism also attached to it, and I use this to capture very nice, smooth horizontal and vertical shots. The slider itself is honestly buttery smooth, and it is the best one that I have actually used. I will say that the accuracy is questionable, but I do find that I'm not doing lots of repeat motion. But if you were to do that, that's maybe something to consider. Lastly, let's talk about the C-Pan Arm 2. Now, I really did debate over the year as well about whether this was a good purchase or not, because it does provide a lot of useful functions. It can slide, it can move vertically, it can change to a diagonal position, and it kind of almost interacts with you as a jib and slider. I will say that being manual does provide its limitations, and the obvious one is accuracy with doing repeat shots. You know, you can't always get it right first time, and if you do have a certain motion that you like, it's unlikely that you're going to get it exactly the same time again. It is a very good bit of equipment. If you're a solo content creator, it does have its advantages, and it's a good starting point for something that's maybe a bit more advanced. Overall, I wouldn't say that it's the best bit of equipment out there, but it's something to look at if you have a bit of time. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I know there was a lot of bits to talk about there. I'm not saying go out and buy all these bits of equipment, but maybe just consider them for 2025, because if you're doing product work, it may actually help you a little bit further and also advance what you're doing as well. If you found something useful, remember to hit the like button and subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon.